What's up, everyone? Phil Cornetta here again, PGA teaching professional and director of instruction at Sun and Air Golf Center. Today is lesson 4 in our stay-at-home lesson series, and today's lesson is going to be on the backswing pivot, how to correctly rotate those hips in the backswing, how to get that energy around your spine correctly, and how to really maintain the proper tilts and bends in the pelvis as we're creating our backswing. Okay, so this is a great lesson, a lot of important information in here, and this is, again, a little bit of a continuation off of lesson 3 in our stay-at-home lesson series. And lesson 3 dealt a little bit more with the takeaway, how to create more of a one-piece feel and a connection between the body, arms, and the club. So if you didn't have a chance to watch that video or you'd like to rewatch it, you can always check it out on my YouTube channel at Phil Cornetta Golf School, and you can see all of these videos from the stay-at-home lesson series. So there's some excellent information in there, some great drills that you can do right here at home while we're waiting for everything to kind of reopen. Okay, so let's jump into today's lesson on the backswing pivot, and let's discuss a little bit of the movement that's going on, and then I'll show you an excellent feedback drill that we can do right here at home with some couple items that are just right around the house. Okay, so let's jump into it and let's get started. So let's get into our address position. And remember, this is position 1 is your address, and then P2 or position 2 is when you reach the first parallel line. That's when the shaft is parallel to the ground. P3 is when that left arm is parallel to the ground. And then position 4 at the top is the top of the backswing. Okay, so these are just simple little positions that we can use as a reference as we kind of go through this video. Okay, so when we get into our address position and we go from P1 into P2, we should already starting to feel the initial turn of that right hip. We're just initiating the pivot. We're not fully engaging the pivot yet. We're just starting to rotate that right hip back. And a great way to think about your pivot is like just a simple way of thinking about it is kind of just think about your right hip pocket. So after we get from P1 to P2, we should start to feel like the right hip pocket is going to turn back, up, and around. And we're going to have different reasons why we want to feel this. So when the right hip pocket turns back, what that does is that helps us avoid any sort of excessive lateral movement to the right. When it goes up, we're going to be lengthening the pelvis. It's going to start to let our hips rotate more down at a tilt towards the ground. So as we lengthen that right leg, you're going to see there's a subtle change in flexion in the right leg. And you see this a lot with great tour players and ball strikers is the right leg is going to increase a little bit of straightness, or it's going to get a little straighter. So we're going to see a little bit less of that flexion in the knee. So you're going to start to see that right leg straighten just a touch. This will put the hips at a tilt, going along with that shoulder plane, because if we're going to keep our shoulders at a tilt, we also want our hips to be rotating at a tilt as well. This creates a more coordinated sequence and allows the body, or excuse me, the shoulders and the hips to work a little bit more functionally together. Okay, so as we feel that lengthening, we should start to see a touch of straightening in the right leg. We do not want to lock this out, because when we lock this out, now we're in a reverse pivot, all my weight's over my lead foot, and then usually the most common compensation you'll see is when a player swings back through on the downswing, they'll fall backwards, all their weight will start to go back. And so now we're in a reverse weight shift pattern. It'll probably lead to hitting behind the ball most commonly. So we want to really get away from some of this poor movement and make sure we're doing this correctly, okay? So again, if we feel the correct movement, we should start to feel like the right hip pocket is going back, up for extension, and then around to create some rotation of those shoulders and those hips around your spine. So that's how we really create some energy and to create some club head speed, okay? So that's the feeling we want. We want our right hip pocket to feel like it goes back, up, and around. And from this face-on perspective, this will give you a better viewpoint. You'll see how once we start to turn the right hip back, it really avoids that lateral movement. So as I extend, I want my right hip to feel like it goes back, up, and around. You know, now I'm really staying more on top of the ball. I'm getting a much better feeling to the turn, and you can see I'm not moving or drifting too much from side to side. So a crucial component to creating that functional movement, okay? So let's show you excellent drills so you can work on this right here at home and see whether or not you're doing it correctly. So I'm gonna grab 2 chairs. I'm just gonna grab 2 chairs from the deck here. Okay. And once we set these up, I want this to be set up so that we have a little bit of space between the chair on your left side and your lead hip. So whether you're righty or lefty, think about your lead side as obviously being the hip that's closest to your target. Your trail hip will be the one furthest away from the target. So for us right-handers, I want the right hip pocket and the chair to be pretty close to each other. I want about 1 inch of space between the chair on the right and my right hip. And then on the forward chair, so on the left side or the lead chair, I want to feel about 3 to 4 inches of space here. Okay, it's important to maintain some space here. We don't want to get it too tight to our hips because you'll see why. Okay, so once we get set up, I'm just going to put a club across my shoulders to represent the shoulder tilt and plane here. Okay, and so for any player that moves too much laterally in their swing and really struggles with making solid contact, the first movement's going to be just banking into the chair. Okay, they don't have any space or room to be created, so they're just moving a lot from side to side. All that lateral movement's going to really affect the bottoming out point of the swing, which we call the low point, and so you're going to struggle with good contact. Okay, so if we have these chairs set up again, and we put this back to about 1 inch from that right hip, when I swing back, I want to feel like, again, my right hip is going to go back, up, and around. So notice how I've created some space now between the chair. This is so important. This will allow us to stay much more centered and on top of the ball. We'll start to feel that change of flexion in the right leg. It'll start to straighten just a touch, and you'll really start to feel some energy rotating around the spine. So again, don't slam into the chair. Try to create some space. If we do this correctly and the right hip pocket feels like it goes back, up, and around, you should see about a golf ball or two of space from the chair on the right. That way we can now put some pressure back into the turf and fire that energy back up and through off of the ground using those proper ground force mechanics. So it's so important to create that energy source correctly and to really create some energy around the spine using that correct backswing pivot. Okay? And that's also why we need a little bit of space here on the lead chair, is because when we go back and we create that proper pivot, when I put some pressure back into the ground, I'm also going to be moving a little bit of energy into my left side. So I need to have some space here to move just a touch laterally. That way I can then spring up and off the ground as I rotate, really creating that proper ground force feel. So that's why we need to have a little bit of space on the left side. But use this drill. It's a simple thing you can do right at home just to create a little bit of feedback on whether or not you're properly rotating your hips. Okay, so excellent drill. Something you can do right here at home, just using some simple items around the house. Okay, so trying to really work on this backswing pivot. It's so important to get this movement down correctly because it really, again, is that foundation for the rotation in the backswing. It allows you to stay centered. It allows you to control the low point. If you really want to be a great ball striker, controlling the low point of the swing, where the club bottoms out before it starts swinging back up, is really important. That's how you're really going to create solid contact, is understanding where the club's truly going to bottom out. Okay, so an excellent drill here to do right at home. And again, anytime you guys have questions, don't be afraid to send me an email. I'm available for online lessons while we're all kind of stuck here at home. There's a couple different options for that as well. But hang in there, stay positive, keep working on that golf swing, and stay tuned. We got lots more fun lessons ahead. So hopefully we'll be able to see you guys all in the next couple of weeks here. We'll get back out on that lesson tee soon. But I'm looking forward to seeing everyone. But in the meantime, keep working on that golf swing, stay positive, keep working at it.